Welcome to the American Intelligence Media. My name is Douglas Gabriel, a.k.a. Thomas, pain in the ass of the gold. So yes, I love being that pain. And I have with me here today one of the best researchers and leaders of teams of researchers, Michael McKibben. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, Douglas. How are you?
Well, I'm a little bit worked up because I talked with you before this, and you told me something that brought us full circle back to where we started when we looked at the QRS-11. Because we heard that a certain wicked woman and her wicked husband were connected to this uninterruptible autopilot that can take down any plane and now any train, any bus, almost everything in the air has one of these. And it went back to this one strange couple somewhere down below the Mason-Dixon line. And we said, this sure looks suspicious because what it led to was the Internet of Things of Richard C. Walker. And then we realized that a patent was written that said they're going to take over the world, and this is the mechanism of how they're going to do it with the communication, with regressive remote control, with even taking federal agencies, NSA, and running it through some kind of corporate center. And so we realized this when we came across the Richard C. Walker Internet of Things. But now you have been down in the mines, and I'm not gonna tell them. I'm not gonna be the spoiler on this one. Would you please tell us?
Well, I got to tell you, I've got people here. I'm having to scrape off the ceiling. They're so excited.
Well, it's absolutely what we thought. Remember, we thought this from the beginning, but we couldn't figure out the mechanism. Now we know the mechanism, but now we needed to know the companies. And now you have found the companies and you're hot on the trail. Now, it's not the end of your research, but this is so hot that we have to give updates. So can you tell us what you have found, Michael McKibben?
Well, we talked yesterday, or I can't remember when we talked about this last, but we were talking about this Entrust group that manages certificate authorities for many government agencies. And it's a lot more government agencies than even the public key infrastructure website discloses. And so we had people that actually dug into all the securities filings for Entrust ever since it was formed as a spin-off of Nortel, the Canadian phone company, back in 2009. And I'm just going to bottom line it for you, because going through these corporate filings is literally like watching paint dry. It's so boring. But every once in a while you find a gold nugget. Well, this one just exploded. Let me tell you what happened in late 2003, because everybody saw a movie called The Social Network, where this supposed boy genius of 19 years old, Mark Zuckerberg, supposedly had all these great ideas for Facebook, and his fingers moved so fast he was able to start this company and get it out on the market by February 4th of 2004. Well, late in 2003, we had actual programmers who were debugging a key module that the IBM Eclipse Foundation and our attorney, James P. Chandler, were waiting for. And we now know from our source code that the key module debug was complete on October 28th of 2003. What we see now is that Entrust, the very next day on October 29th, issued an SEC press release where they announced that they had acquired a contract with Northrop Grumman, the big defense contractor, to provide the public key infrastructure for their customer, which was the FBI. And it wasn't just part of the FBI, it was the entire FBI. Let me just read you from their SEC filing. Entrust announced a significant federal contract award from Northrop Grumman Information Technology, NGIT, for its public key infrastructure, PKI, based secure solutions for deployment at the Federal Bureau of Investigation's FBI. The solution will initially be used by the FBI to strongly authenticate employees at FBI headquarters utilizing Entrust digital IDs and be extended to support the FBI's 50,000 users in the United States and abroad. In the same press release, they also announced the largest transaction in the quarter involved a new government customer in the UK, the UK Customs and Excise Department. And that's in the same press release. So that's a pretty good contract, wouldn't you say?
Well, if you want to cover up your crime, it's always good to control the entire FBI from a corporation. Yeah, I think I'd like to be in that corporation if I was doing dirty deals. Mm-hmm.
That must be a brilliant sales guy who got that contract. But then it really got interesting when several months later they announced a new director by the name of Jerry C. Jones. And by the way, it was very difficult to find this announcement. We've triangulated it back to the date when he was issued his first stock options as a new director in Insure. His announcement, his 8K announcement, is missing from the SEC website. But we were able to confirm it, and then subsequent reports report his resume. And this is when it just exploded. He was a 19-year attorney for the Rose Law Firm in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Some people don't know what that means, but that's if you're a patriot, that's where you cheer and say, "Go, Michael."
Well, it's a team effort, so I'm speaking.
But I wasn't down there in the mine. I might be polishing up these stones, but Rose Law Firm, that's Hillary Clinton's law firm where the patents were stolen. She was a patent attorney, so she got the patent to be basically control corporate corruption, even with the FBI and law enforcement, even going up into Canadian Customs, and all of this.
The implications of this are just astounding, because what we see here, anybody that was with the Rose Law Firm for 19 years obviously is a Clinton insider. Clinton Foundation insider. And what this is telling us is that anyone associated with the Clintons had the literal law enforcement keys for the entire planet. And it is no wonder they're so arrogant, because these people would be able to tap into any digital environment and place documents in it, or take documents out of it, or modify files, or put in false flags, or put misdirection in there to show a particular website and make it look like it came from the Russians or the British or the Israelis or whomever they wanted, however they wanted to make the picture look. These are the literal keys that would make that possible.
And just to make it clear for simple people like myself, these keys, without the keys, you can't run the internet. And without these keys, you can't get a digital handshake to certify that anybody's anybody. So they sell it to you as trust, but it's really a tax. And this tax.
And with these keys, you can get into any system. You can hack into any system.
Which means, as we've always known,
this is not even hacking, by the way. Mm-hmm. This isn't hacking. This is as if the internet had no keys, because when you have all the keys that the FBI uses, you've got access to everything on the planet.
Full surveillance, full targetability, full manipulation. This is,
right.
and we saw this in the patents of Richard C. Walker, that there was a central hub, and then these other hubs on the outside, and then they serviced everybody else. And everybody's all connected to one central hub. We couldn't figure out who it is. We have found out that at this moment...
This is astounding. This is the center of the FBI corruption, in my mind.
And this is a corporation, and this corporation was planned by Hillary and Bill and Chandler and the very people who attacked Leader Technologies and then stole that material and gave it to IBM Eclipse Foundation. As you were just quoting before, They were waiting for you to finish that so they could take the very next step.
Right.
So they knew they were going to do
Within
this
days.
because we saw the patent, Richard C. Walker, which was for a company called Agilent, which was very suspicious, and nobody even knows if that guy exists. Yeah, he worked for Hewlett Packard, I guess, for years, and then all of a sudden he comes up with the ultimate patent. But Michael, with that patent, wouldn't this thing that you've described, which is called the Common Policy Center, or some call it the Bridge Authority.
Federal Common Policy.
Federal Common Policy.
And then some people call it Federal Bridge, but that's just an element of this larger group called Federal Common Policy, of which one of the major 8 hubs is Entrust, which is the company we're talking about, which shows that it manages the Department of Energy, the Military Satellite Office, and Health and Human Services. That's what they show on their website. They don't show the Northrop Grumman responsibilities or the issuance of all the keys to the FBI. That came out of the Securities and Exchange documents.
So basically, we're looking at the criminal conspiracy to turn the internet into a weaponized form of aggressive remote control manipulation, as well as, unfortunately, it's turned into the hub of business. And we see through this system, which they're kind of, they're happy to brag about how these systems work because it's above board, it's all legal, but it's in fact a mafia system. There's literally...
Well, the astounding thing is they turned around and sold this company with all this responsibility for our law enforcement for not only the United States, but effectively the rest of the world. They sold it to that company in San Francisco. What's the name of it?
Thoma Bravo.
Name. They sold it to this private company to manage all the digital keys that are supposed to keep us safe.
Yeah, and that's what we need to focus on, and then we're going to get into the details of how they did that. And, you and your researchers are just genius about this because it's impossible for other people to follow these tracks because the way that they obfuscate them. But really what we're talking about here is a complete network that goes beyond our government, that the government has sold out to, and there's a very clever way that the government did that and made it legal, but we won't go there yet. But let's just say right now, at this moment, there is a guy, Orlando Bravo, who pretty much has control of an asset management company handling $20 billion a year, which in fact charges what you could call, these license and fees. I call it a tax for everyone on the internet, which means they can get in and out of everything. They control it all. To say nobody owns the internet is complete nonsense. If this company turned off...
No, it's Orlando Bravo and Hillary Clinton.
If they turned off the electricity, it all goes down. Now, that's a good thing, because then when we take it over as a public utility, honestly, maybe we do turn it off for a minute, and when we turn it back on, it's not going to have their surveillance on it. But the point is that Hillary and Bill Clinton and the same group of people, Rod Rosenstein, Comey, Mueller, Stephen Crocker,
Holder.
Pardon me?
Holder.
Eric
Lynch.
Holder, Lynch. What's the guy from IBM who shifted over to the patent office?
David Capos, John Podesta.
All of them. They were all there when this happened, and now that Michael and his researchers have found literally the documentation to say this is a conspiracy, folks. It was a conspiracy from the beginning, and it was a conspiracy to control the patents of America, because they knew that if they could get the central patent that they all had to write, they had to have basically permission for the base code to get a license. Michael can explain that, not me. But basically, they're all beholden to Richard C. Walker. So because this system is in place, it has to be licensed through Richard C. Walker's patent. But we didn't know what country it was in. This mess started in Canada with the Northern Telecommunications company, which is basically the Canadian telecommunications company that we say Trump is talking about when Trudeau says that they're taking over the cultural aspects of the country. That's the telecommunication system. Trump has come out and said that. Why?
It has another name now besides Nortel, but it's effectively the same infrastructure.
And it's basically a government monopoly, which somehow started a company that got the keys to everything, including America, and then gave
Yep.
that over to another company, to some bozo we don't even know who it is. And then we
Yep.
find out that the Australians have a version, and the Germans have a version, and the British have a version. And it's like, oh, wait a second. Wait. Why was no one ever told that there is no true net neutrality with that name? There's no freedom on the internet. This is a monopoly. It's always been basically a weaponized economic form of psyops that got out of control. And now what we see is another rat trail of the way that a government monopoly like Nortel, which was the telecommunications company for Canada, opens a crooked company, opens a second crooked company, opens an American version of that crooked company, shifts it, starts illegally in Canada because you can't do it in America.
And then gets these astounding contracts from the U.S. government.
Oh, huge. Monopolies, no bid monopoly contracts. And then they create a fake dummy company, and then they sell it to an asset management company, and you can't tell who gets that money. But I've been told that the richest of the cabal retire into this organization and sit back and collect the taxes.
Oh, this is a perfect retirement, because once you have this system set up and it's automated, there's very little to do except keep the computers running, because it's all software. So people can easily be appointed directors of these companies and be paid handsomely and never have to show up to work. Never, ever. Because
Yes.
it can be run by a very small group of technologists.
Yes, these people are, I have been told, and we have yet to prove this because the research is not done.
This is like digital credits. This is the digital version of carbon credits, in my view.
Absolutely. And that was a scam based upon a myth. And this is a scam based upon a myth. Because here's the deal, and people don't understand this. The American people's tax dollars subsidized AT&T and Ma Bell to the tune of 40 to 45%, even to this very day. Sometimes it depends on when they're, like the new equipment that was going to be put out for the 5G that everybody's fighting over. They know that they're not paying for all of that. The government pays for that. The lines, the infrastructure should be owned 40 to 45% by American people. So AT&T and Verizon and Sprint, they only paid for part of that. And then they get subsidized every year, just like Amazon is subsidized. People don't understand. Facebook is subsidized. Google is subsidized. They're all subsidized. They couldn't exist without it. They can't be that big unless they've got a merger with the government.
Clicked on an ad?
Pardon me? Yeah.
Yeah, when's the last time you ever clicked on an ad?
Exactly. No one has ever convinced me that they make a single dime off of any ad.
Ads are the greatest money laundering scam, one of them on the planet.
What I liked was Facebook just came out. Was it Facebook or... Yeah, they have 20,000 people working in security. Really? 20,000 people working in security. But you tell us it's AIs, and you tell us that it's not your fault, it's the machine's fault. But you have 20,000 Facebook agents who can't get radical Islamic terrorists off the net, but they can sure go after conservatives, don't they? And so, we've gone into that. But the point is, this is the system. It's a tax system. And it's a system everybody has to pay. Can you explain Symantec and the way that anybody would be basically paying this tax?
Yeah, if you're running a website, you've got a certain domain number, and anymore you've got to have this digital certificate or certificate of authentication associated with that website, so that when you go to that website, there's a handshake that occurs between that certificate and your machine, or the servers do the same thing with each other. So they've got to exchange identity to say, okay, I know who you are, you know who I am, therefore I'm going to let you in. It's pretty much that simple. And it's just there's a lot of them, so the real key to making this system work is to have redundant servers. So most of these certificate authorities have 2 or 3 different servers, so if one of their servers is down, the system will look for another duplicate list so that you can go ahead and get in.
So is this like ICANN and IP addresses and what that genius Sir Bernard Tim Berners-Lee invented at the rogue headquarters of the CIA over there at CERN in Switzerland. Well, that guy supposedly from one day to the next created the ability for the World Wide Web to exist. Can you tell us about ICANN, and is this like IP addresses, just being able to recognize?
ICANN's a little different. ICANN's related, but it's a little different. ICANN manages the numbers for the digital addresses. So when you type an English URL like leader.com, the ISP actually looks up what the actual physical number address is for our server, and then it will then connect you to our server. So ICANN manages basically a two-column list. One is the English name for the website, and the other is the set of set of numbers associated with it. And again, it's not difficult conceptually. What makes it difficult to manage is there are so many of them. So they've got to have very large computers to do that.
Well, what I like is when you look on the chart, you basically realize that the NSA, who's supposed to be surveilling everybody, feeds their information to the central hub. And that central hub is not government-oriented. It is not military. It is a corporation. Now, that is extraordinarily disturbing. And you see it with the DoD. You see it with the satellites. You see it with you see it with basically everything. There's nothing that doesn't go through this system. That means that even when they have their own hub for a specific, say, military
when you
defense,
say go through, it's not going through. I think that's what most people think, that it's physical. The bits are going through a server. It's not really going through there. All it's doing is checking with that server. It's like a ping. And it's saying, is this person on your list? If you send back a yes, I let them in. If you send back a no, I don't let them in. So it's not going through anywhere. It's just a master list where it's like somebody who's checking the list when you're invited to a party to see if you're on the party, and then they let you in.
Is that true for the certifications also?
The certifications are associated with the domain numbers, but it's a different group managing the certification. It could be the same group, but it's not.
Oh, that's who I was talking about. I was talking about the Federal Common Policy Group, that they would. But you straightened this out for me before. I keep thinking that it all goes to the central group, and then they are able to target who they want and go out. But you said no. No. You can skip over even the hub because this is so connected. It's just like a mishmash. It's just a list that says, is he on the list or isn't he? And so I may want to go from A to B. Okay, let's say C is the server that's got that list on it. So I want to go from A to B. I knock at the door of B. B checks with C, which is the server list, and sees if A is on the list. If A is on the list, then I connect to B. And
I don't go to B. I don't go to C. It just B checks with C.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Okay. So basically, they're doing pretty much nothing and charging. Have we figured out how much? I mean, if they're, I started trying to figure it out. It seemed like tens of billions, could be even a month. You pointed out this is a monthly fee. So do we have any crude, rough estimations of what might be collected for this internet tax in a year?
Well, I think the total monetization of this system is just probably astounding, because we've got the physical subscriptions for these certificates, which is a monthly fee. But then you've got all the uses of this information where they sell it to third parties, and that's no doubt where the big money is. And of course, then you've got all this obvious blackmail now that we see that they control all the FBI's keys. It's the ultimate blackmail machine. Let's be clear.
Well, then, and extortion, blackmail, but also wouldn't they be able to tell if anybody really hacked anybody? Because wouldn't they have a record of who it was that was hacking, and they'd have their IP address or who they were, or in some way, couldn't they actually figure out these crimes that they say they can't figure out? That's my point.
That information would vary depending on what server was being hacked. But no, this list would not keep that kind of record necessarily. Depends on what kind of side lists are being kept as the digits move around. But there's no one answer to that.
Oh, and I think we mentioned that last night when we were speaking, that in essence, if you pay the tax, they don't care if you're a murderer, you can still get a certificate. So it doesn't stop anybody unless they want to somehow target you, because they do have the ability to get in. Now, one thing I was noticing is that Nortel wants to claim that really what they're all about is their source code, and that's why everybody below them kind of became licensed by them. Now, you always talk about the back door, and you even know the type of code that is used and what that code is. Is that the same code that Nortel is basically saying the only real thing that they have is this base code that the other companies can build on and trust and otherwise, and then that also allows them to get into everything? That is their back door. So is that the same thing as what you talk about, that the back door that the government makes you put in here in America?
That back door is an encryption algorithm that generates random numbers for encryption systems. So the key to that is the fact that this algorithm has an inbuilt flaw. So the best kind of encryption is generated when you have truly random numbers. If the number isn't truly random, then it is possible, it's much more easy to crack an encryption key if there is a flaw in the algorithm, which the one you're referring to is a flaw that the NSA built into the dual ECDRBG algorithm that generates random keys for these encryption systems. And supposedly they're the only ones that know about this flaw. But when you know that flaw, you can crack any encryption where that algorithm was used to generate the random number for the encryption key.
I see. Now, another big issue we were discussing last night was they sell this to everybody. First off, you have to have it, so there's no need to sell it. It's like a tax.
Right.
You pay it or you don't play. But they
Right.
sell it as
well. They'll
trust.
send you a notice if you're not on. They'll send you a notice that you've got so many days to get it. Otherwise, you're going to go down.
And they tell you,
Essentially.
that they're the only ones you can trust. They're going to certify that whoever you communicate with, you're protected. They sell this just like they sold the Richard C. Walker Internet of Things patent, which was, it's for your own good. We need to be able to control your animal so that if we want, we can just make it lie down and go to sleep so it can't bite you. We need to control you in case you wish to bite your neighbor. We need to control everything. And so then they tell you, they scare you, but I don't get it. If you can't shake hands with somebody that doesn't have a certificate and you can't play, then why are they even trying to sell us anything? And why are they trying to scare us to say that we need them, because otherwise we can't trust who it is that's going to get in? And there's that there's the dark net, and there's hackers, and there's all, and so they sell this fear to you, and then they sell the solution, but the solution is a given. You have to take it anyway. So to me, it just looked like a CIA operative from the beginning as soon as I looked at it.
Well, it could be a useful tool, but it's been weaponized. Because if somebody's got a certificate, then they've presumably gone through some sort of vetting process. But as you say, the only vetting process is you pay them the money. And we don't know what goes on behind the scenes with Symantec and Trust and all these other companies, how much other checking they're doing, because it is possible for them not to issue you a certificate, in which case you can't run your website. And up till now, there's been no pushback when you make such a filing. But if you wanted to censor people or prevent people from getting on the web, this would be the way to do it. You just don't give them the certificate.
Now, the thing that got people all upset was when we started using the words from the patent, wetware, and that this patent is to take control of you, your body, everything around you. It is an aggressive remote control, centrally coordinated system. And now we have found that system. And so the question would be, oh, then where's the wet work and how are they going to do this? Well, here's how they do it. It's called e-government, or it's called the personal identification verification something else. I forget it. The PIVs, and basically the ability to have international recognition with a card that tells everybody everything about you. And eventually, if you don't have the card, then you don't exist.
Well,
and
the card will
eventually,
become a chip, and then it will be embedded in your skin.
thank you. You took the words out of my mouth, and therein is the wetware. So, this is no small thing that we're revealing here. We're revealing how the system has already been set up for the Internet of Things, which are going to reach into your house, your work, your personal life, even your body, your medical records, everything, your bank records, every single thing. And it will go into this social credit system that's all digitized, just like they're doing in in China. So what did they do as soon as Eric Schmidt got over there? He goes, I can show you something here. Let me show you what I've invented. And so they put cameras everywhere. And now their system called Dragonfly takes a picture of your face, determines if you have a criminal look on it. The police intercept you, take your telephone, and if you have gone to WhatsApp, or I don't know what I'm talking about. WhatsApp, whatever that is.
It's a Facebook company.
They put you in jail by facial recognition, which is now everywhere in public in the major cities in China. They also noticed that in certain areas that the poor Muslims seem to have a lot of criminal looks on their face because they arrested 1 million of them and put them in retraining camps, and half of them die in there or they die as soon as they come out. So what we're dealing with here, folks, is right now Eric Schmidt is setting up the very program that we are showing you the substructure of to indicate that it is that pervasive. And it is that imperative that we do something about it now. We need to turn all these systems into a public utility. We need to make sure any line coming into this country is absolutely clear of this garbage. We need to take control that we give out to the Five Eyes. Oh, they're British. They're from the United Kingdom. They're from Australia. They're from Canada. Or they're from New Zealand. They can't possibly be our enemies. No, look closely.
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. You triggered a thought. I just remembered on the time frame here. We're talking the end of 2003. Guess who the FBI director was when this contract was issued to Jerry C. Jones and Trust?
Mueller?
Yes.
Of course. That's why he was there, because he was the dude who was saying, look, if you IT people are going to invent this stuff that's going to take over the world, we want to tell you we have to control it. And then they said, yeah, but we don't want the government to control it, Hillary says. And Bill says, no. We can own it all. We can get the Chinese to get in on this. We can get foreign countries to get in, create a corporation. We'll get Canada, and we'll get them in. This is literally what they probably sat around drinking their latte.
And we'll put Jerry C. Jones on the board, and then we've got access to all the keys. And old Robert can just feed them out to us whenever we need to cook any documents.
And Chandler and the other patent thieves like Hillary Clinton, who is a patent infringement attorney. And remember, her dad was part of the Chicago mafia, essentially. But the mob, this is a mob thing that's going on here. It's the mob control of the Internet from the get-go. But when they said to Mueller, we'll just pay you under the table in offshore accounts, Mueller has been doing a fine job being a crooked supposed law enforcer, both in the DOJ and in the FBI, who then goes out and goes to the corporations to make sure that they're enriched. So he did this from the beginning, and it literally was institutionalized, and we believe this from the beginning. If you remember, we said we know that Starr Law Firm down in Little Rock, Arkansas, is the guilty party for the greatest patent thefts that have stolen.
It's just astounding that
trillions.
That name popped up here.
Popped up where?
It's the fact.
Yeah.
It's in corporate. It's in SEC documents. This is all judicially recognizable evidence.
Yes, and then you look at Agilent, And you look at Agilent now, they got to sit back and just license things that are related to a kind of this generalized patent that takes over the whole world. And who was there from the beginning? That was the same exact group of people. That was Hillary and Chandler and the gang. I mean,
But Agilent built a lot of the technology that was used to implement this.
Yes, and they had some of one of the largest venture capital investments before a company went public in history.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's ever heard of this guy. Nobody's heard of the company, and nobody knows what they do. But we hear that 100% total surveillance is going on because we see it cropping up out of Facebook, out of YouTube, out of Google's. We see that there's companies that do nothing but analyze this stuff. It gets sold, your entire profile, sold by Facebook. $3.54 to anybody who wants it. That includes communists. That includes North Korea. That includes anybody who wants. It doesn't matter. They'll sell it all day long to anybody, and then they'll come out, testify before our Congress. Nothing happens. They testify before the European Union. $8 billion in security fines and sanctions, and another how many billions in lawsuits. They go to Australia. They get a $2 billion fine slapped on them there. They've all avoided taxes in America. These are criminals, folks. These are government hybrid monopolies. And Obama and Silicon Valley were in bed so much that when Obama left the office, he already demanded $2 billion from them for his library. And they gave it to him before he even left office. And it's a corrupt library that will never even go into existence, probably because we can't get the records on Brett Kavanaugh because Obama won't release them because nobody knows where his records are because there is no library at this point. So that's what we're dealing with is information warfare. And what you have discovered is their central hub, but we haven't discovered exactly, but we believe, so get ready, UK PLC, because I think that there is a bloodhound coming after you, and I don't think that Orlando Bravo is going to be able to help you. So that one share that you were just talking to me about, that one share sounds like the golden share of the Queen again. So if we, often as we see, it goes right back to the Privy Council. And I said from the beginning, when you described this corrupt law firm that Hillary worked for in Little Rock, Arkansas, I said, but wait, the only missing piece here is where's the Queen's representative? Remember? And we didn't get that part. It wasn't clear. Who was the Queen's representative in IBM Eclipse Foundation? But now we see who it was. It was the company that was setting up underneath that patent to absorb everything below it, including they would all be kowtowing, all of them. That would be Facebook and Google and all the big ones have to kowtow to Entrust or companies like them, or they don't even get to operate. So you have hit the mark once again, and I think you may have found another one of those things the Queen's carrying in her purse, her little one share.
Well, the fact that they got the contract for the UK Customs and Excise pretty much says it all right there.
It's like Serco. Oh,
why would the UK give up its sovereignty to an American company like this? Oh, it's not American, it's Canadian. I forgot.
And it's British, and we forgot that we Americans are still British. They haven't let loose of us yet because they're still charging us tax.
I love the Canadians, but I hate this circumstance.
Yes, and you can see why they don't want to give up any American control or even ability to look at their telecommunication systems in Canada. Because that's where the gold corruption goes on. That's where the Uranium One corruption got shipped from Detroit to Windsor. Remember? That's how it got out of the country. Mm-hmm. And all the resources there and all these things. Well, what is that? That is an extension of the British government. All the Commonwealths are. And they think...
Well, I always wonder, as a person who tries to live an honest life, how these people think they can get away with all this and how they can not leave a trail of evidence. Well, now we know why they're so arrogant. It's because they've got the keys to the FBI's headquarters.
Absolutely.
And all the FBI agents. And so, therefore, they can clean up any mess. Period.
Yes. And that's why, as you pointed out, Hillary and Bill have acted with complete impunity, complete lawlessness. complete arrogance. Why is it nothing can get to them? Nothing, even in what we're seeing right now with this Russian dossier.
They've got the FBI keys.
Yes, so they have, basically, as you say, enough blackmail to extort anybody. I would imagine that Bill Clinton's library down there in Arkansas is a collection and operations center for this very Entrust company, which is probably in the hub, in the ultimate hub. Oh, and we need to explain that ultimate hub. In the Federal Common Policy Hub, they probably have direct access to that, as well as many other people who have the golden share, like the British Privy Council. But let's explain then. Here's how it works. This little hub is made up. The controllers of this magnificent system is, in fact, they give their power away through charters to these corporations to do it, and they are the chief information officers of the cabinet level members of the executive.
Correct.
As you've pointed out, these are probably people straight out of college. Look, they let Imran Awan be a chief information officer. Okay, he didn't even have a background check.
We did check the resumes of all the people that are current CIOs, and not a one of them is listed in the previous 2016 Plum book. So the guess is they're all going to be listed in the next one, which will be in 2020.
And they're uninformed stooges. But after a few years, they probably get informed to this system because they are actually in charge of it. They are in charge of this system. They are the ones who grant charters to corporations to govern a system that controls all of our intelligence, all of our military, and all of our corporations. And they farm it out to a guy, named Orlando Bravo, whoever he is. Okay, I mean, this is unbelievable. Right. And as you pointed out,
and then anybody that's got the information can go underneath these CIOs. These CIOs are just obvious figureheads. The real power are the technology people and the directors of these private companies that are given these contracts, are granted these contracts to manage these keys.
Now, I'm going to throw something else in the works here. Dmitry Alperovitch and his group CrowdStrike were the number one people for the last 5 years of Obama's administration, the only company called in for any cyber warfare hacking, whether it was in the military or corporate. For instance, Sony, when Sony was hacked, right? Because supposedly the movie about Kim Jong-un, making fun of him. No, that was Dmitry Alperovitch came in, and what did he say? He said it was North Koreans. He left the footprints of the North Koreans there. He's very sloppy. He left the footprints of the Russians and the Democratic National Committee servers. He left the footprints, old footprints, version 1.0, when there was always already a 2.2 out. He was using old footprints, attributes and footprints, even with the artillery scandal in the Ukraine, where he was again shown to be fake. So everything Dmitry Alperovitch ever says is a big fat lie. And you wonder, how is it that he can get in there and he can look at anything? He can't stop the hacks. He can come up with these crazy reports that he won't let anybody else even look at the server or even question his reports, and his reports are obviously very incorrect by the experts who look at them. But why would he be the only person called in the last 5 years of Obama's administration anytime they had a problem? So the Sony hack, he says it was North Korea. Now it says, oh no, it was a North Korean, they now say, it's been released. It was a North Korean who hacked Sony, who was working in China, who wasn't in China, but was No, every single attribute that Dmitry Alperovitch has ever placed as this expert of Obama has been proven to be false. But the system that we're talking about shows how he's able to get in and out, and wherever he wants to go, he's simply allowed access. And his dad is noted for being the number one person in America working for defense and corporate interests, government interests, creating cryptological keys. So his dad is a Russian ex-nuclear scientist, supposedly, who was really a CIA asset, and Dmitry Alperovitch, who had been arrested by the FBI for being a Russian hacker in America and creating the worst hacking America ever saw, was then turned into an FBI agent, and then he was used anytime Obama needed him to create false reports. And now I can see how they act with such impunity, because he has complete access to do whatever he wants if he has access to this system. And he was doing what? He was supporting the Democratic National Committee, Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton was right there when these systems were created, and she actually literally was involved with the people creating them. So it just shows you the full circle.
It does. Jerry C. Jones could get any key on the planet.
And you knew this, we knew this, but we couldn't quite get the last piece. But we assumed that it had gone somewhere to Europe, and somewhere over in Europe someone has the company that does what the Richard C. Walker Internet of Things patent says it does. And it had to be that. And now we do find it. We're probably going to find out it's Britain, so we're probably right in our first assumption. But who could have known that it could be so evil, and that you could literally find the trail of evil that literally cannot be closed up now that you have found the indictable evidence?
Yes, it was a very twisted trail, but it was there.
Michael, we're going to keep going into this more and more. And as you look into UK PLC, all I can say is y'all over there in Britain, I know that's where you are. So get ready to close down that company too, like I believe.
That's a huge company.
Well, Serco was closed down.
Holdings.
We went after Serco, and 3 months later, they're closing down, and they're being sued for more money than they can get. We went after the Strategic Communications Laboratory in Cambridge Analytica, and they closed. We went after OPEC, and they get, less than half the money they did. So we're going to go after you folks, and just go ahead and get ready to change to your dummy company that you set up when you set up this fake other companies, because Michael McKibben and his researchers know your tricks, and you just leave a gigantic trail of evidence. And so, Michael, thank you for collecting up all those chunks of gold and those diamonds that were faceting into the most beautiful jewels that are being used against the deep state.
Well, and thank you and Betsy for all that you're doing, and on behalf of the whole team, thank you.